As above, so below. As below, so above. Hello, I'm Whimser of Whimser.com, and today I will be talking to you about the second of the 7 Hermetic principles as taught by the Kybalion, correspondences. The first principle, as you may remember, is the all is mind, the universe is mental, thus setting up the framework for everything else we go into. The first principle is the framework for all the other ones, saying that the universe is entirely a mental creation. The second principle, as above so below, as below so above, now allows us to glue the rest of them together. It gives us the framework here as how we put it all together. It essentially teaches us that all of the scientific laws that we learn, and I'm actually going to be kind of strict about this by saying actual physical science, i.e. physics, chemistry, and biology be an offshoot of those, not the social sciences, because we actually can find quantitative laws with chemistry and with physics, so we're going to use those as an example. Those are things that can be tested and tested and tested to give us the same results over and over again. This is important because these are natural laws that we know we can use. We know we can use them because you yourselves can actually test for things like gravity or dropping things and they're going to fall towards the earth. We know that. We can test for it. We've actually developed technology based on all that. We are not going to discuss any pseudoscience or social science that are not going to give us the same results over and over. Now, with that said, the reason I bring this up is because we can apply all the laws of the natural world, of the physical world, to the mental world. And we will actually find that they will teach us a lot about ourselves. For example, take momentum, for instance. An object in motion, traveling in a particular direction, tends to stay in that direction at the same value, at the same speed, until acted upon by an external force. This is more true in space than it is on the Earth because, of course, like any physics books will not teach you, is we have things called air resistance and friction, which they do teach you, but for anyone that's ever learned about physics, will kind of see the joke in this, that they will always teach you of these things, assuming there is no friction, but of course there is. In space, however, an object tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force. Now, let's apply that to the realm of mind. It's something called a habit. Once you get a habit going, it's going to go by itself. You don't need to actually help the habit out. Though, in truth, we tend to always add more power to the habit by keep on doing a certain action. Take something as simple as which leg you put into your pants first. Is it your right leg or is it your left leg? Try this as an experiment. For the next week, be conscious of which leg you put into your pants. Don't try to change this. Just see what you're just going to do. Usually, for most people, they have a habit to just get dressed. So they're going to end up putting the same leg into the same pant leg over and over and over again first, of course. This is also true about things like cigarettes. There is, granted, a physical element of addiction here, but just reaching for a cigarette and putting it into their mouth provides a lot of people with, well, sort of a security blanket. And they will always go for a cigarette, even if they've kicked the actual addiction. The habit may still remain. Look at all of your habits and try to break them as much as you can, because a habit is sort of like a restriction. As long as you have habits, well, you're going to actually tend to not pay attention to what you're doing. You're just going to let sort of like a subroutine of your mind do the work for you. It's not going to be conscious. We in the magical arts try to actually be conscious of everything we do. Now, getting back to as above, so below. I use the example of momentum because I think if you actually start to see what a habit is, you'll see that it's very similar to momentum. Once you have a habit going, it's very hard to actually kick that habit, unless, of course, you try to replace one habit with another. In other words, the external force is the other habit, hitting this hand with my habit. And it's going to go in motion until my other hand, new habit, veers it off, and now this will be the new habit. Another example we're going to take in physics is that of how electricity works. And this would be physics like 102 stuff, depending on, if you guys are engineers or anything like that. If we have two telephone wires with a charge going the same direction, they will actually bend or magnetically kind of attract each other. It may be only so noticeable because still gravity is going to try to pull those wires down, but I assure you, when you have two telephone lines or two power lines, the charge will be going in the same direction, and when that happens, both of these wires will pull towards each other, will attract each other by magnetism. Now, how many of you have friends because they're into the same things? This is really a very similar principle to that of the electromagnetic effect of a current going down a wire. The direction both you and your friends are going in are your interests, and that will attract both of you guys together, all of you together. Experiment with this idea of using one law, and I do stress laws. I mean, things that we can prove, things that everyone should be able to experiment, like gravity, dropping things. We all know it's going to fall down towards the earth. Experiment with these things and apply them to your own lives. This is correspondence. And using this principle, you can actually figure out your motivations a lot easier. We want to learn our motivations. If we learn our motivations, we can see if it's something that's truly us or maybe an outside influence that we need to shed. But that's a different subject. Well, this particular subject, I can go on and on and on. So instead of going on and on and on, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to give you a quick overview of planes of existence. We have the physical plane, and we all know the physical plane because we spend pretty much all of our time there. But this is not the only plane of existence. There are also various mental planes that are real. This is where we spend most of our time. We spend most of our times in our minds. As a matter of fact, it is through our minds that we see the physical plane. Think about this for a minute. This will actually account for why so many people see the world so much differently. Because they have different filters right in here. These are things, though, that we can work through. If we actually learn the actual physical laws, we can apply them to the mind and escape from a lot of the circumstances that we have trapped ourselves in. Now, there are other planes of correspondence as well, besides mind and besides physical matter. There's emotional, there's spiritual, there's astral. These are all different planes of existence that are real, albeit we may only be able to see them from certain perspectives. But don't think that that's a cop-out. Just because you can't prove with a physical machine that these exist, don't distrust yourself. Don't distrust your actual mind, what you're actually perceiving. because, well, we can't really trust our physical senses completely because there's a time delay. What I see, I'm not seeing in real time. What you see, you're not seeing in real time. Maybe it's only disconnected by a nanosecond. But when the light comes into my eyes, it is then interpreted by my brain. And then through that interpretation, I actually perceive what my eyes are telling my brain. But it's not one-to-one. It's not just because it's out here, I just experience it. I experience everything due to my own beliefs, due to my past experiences, due to what I expect, due to I'm kind of jumbling things up here, but essentially, your expectations, if not correct, will not be able to give you an unbiased opinion. That is why it's very necessary to learn about the physical world. That's why the alchemists learned about chemistry. That's why they learned about physics, and that's why they learned about medicine. They were able to see what chemicals do to the body. And from that, they would learn what the chemicals actually were in terms of what their attributes were. They could actually use that knowledge to understand matter. And through understanding matter, understanding themselves. As above, so below. If something is true on the lower, you better believe it also is true in the higher. Now, do not make the mistake of now saying, well, this is also what certain religions tell me. Religions take lots of archetypes, shuffle them around, regurgitate a story that is used to relate to other people. I'm not saying there's no truth to that, but they are essentially telling a story of using the archetypes of humanity. So we will see the truth in them through the archetypes. But that's not the same for everybody. We all have our own individual story. Though we may use the same characters, they come in a different order in our lives for everybody. That is why the physical world is a much better teacher than any holy book. Read the holy books. There's lots of wisdom in them, but there's way more wisdom in the physical world. What the natural laws can teach you about yourself far exceed what an age-old dead writer saw. And what they saw was completely correct for them, but may not be for you. Experiment with as above, so below. When you start to see laws, check them against yourself. Use them. Use them to understand yourself. As above, so below. So saith the Kybalion. I'm Whimser of Whimser.com.